you don't mind disconnecting, it would be appreciated. For those who don't know, I'm Patrick. I'm the assistant organizer. Frank had a family emergency. He's normally the one doing all this. So I'm up here awkwardly filling in.
Patrick, Mike.
See, I have no idea what I'm doing.
Patrick, who are you?
It would help if I turn on the mic. Who am I?
What do you do, Patrick? Introduce yourself.
I'm Patrick Stocks. I'm a technical SEO for IBM. I'm usually the guy greeting people at the front door during this, but I am one of the organizers. I can't always make these because sometimes I'm traveling, speaking at conferences and stuff. Let's see, where to kick this off? Thanks to our sponsors, we have Raleigh SEO Conference, Ecom Integrate with Keith and his son back there doing our video. Deep Crawl, Look to the Right, The Digital, Reunion Marketing, Wingswept, and Opsis Marketing. We also have our conference coming up. That is Tuesday, May 14th. There's a discount of $50 with the code SEO Meetup. Frank wanted me to tell you the price goes up for that tomorrow if you're interested in going. That's a full day event, 1 day. This is our 4th year and it's going to be great. Tonight, we are talking about how to land a job in marketing. We have a few speakers. We have Cole Watts from Waste Industries, Chris Long from Growfish Digital, and Drago Bratic from Oak City Tech. If you don't mind, welcome our speakers up. Come on up, guys. I'll get the mic I dropped and figure out how to turn it on. One more thing real quick, sorry. How many people here tonight are looking for a job? Raise your hands. We have a good number. How many people here are hiring? Like 2? 3? Pay attention to the ones with the hands raised. Talk to those folks now, after, get their name, share it on Meetup, whatever, post a message. So we're gonna kick things off. We had some questions. I'm not gonna lead this because I'm too awkward in front of a crowd. Sorry.
Can I interrupt real quick? I have to bail, but I am hiring marketing operations. I'm just gonna write my email here. Feel free to email me.
You can also post a comment on the Meetup if you want.
Oh, right. I'll do that too.
What's the position?
Marketing operations, so SEO, back-end marketing automation, and PPC. So, I gotta bail. Thanks, guys. You know me. And yes, I know we spelled expert wrong. Don't get me started.
Okay. So now we're down to 2 in the room that are hiring. Cole, you want to kick this off? I'm told Cole is leading this. Cole's like, I don't know what you're talking about.
I have no idea.
We weren't very organized. Sorry, Frank had a family emergency and yeah.
I guess we can begin with just talking about what would you guys say are the top things you guys are looking for when looking at potential employees?
Yeah, that's a good question. Is this on? Okay. I mean, there's a wide subset of skills that we look at. I guess at the very entry level, what we're initially looking for is one, like some sort of basic understanding of SEO principles. And I work for an SEO agency. Our principles of whatever job you're applying for, whether that's content marketing, ORM, some sort of entry level kind of fundamental understanding. So if we're talking SEO, do you understand that links are important for authority and they help your website rank better? Are you aware that adding additional keywords to a page and optimizing things like title tags and the on-page content, improving the user experience is generally going to help rankings. At the entry level, some sort of basic fundamental understanding of the concepts. Personally, when I look at candidates, I'm also looking for kind of one, are you a hard worker? That's also very important to me. Are you willing to go the extra mile? Are you willing to not take things at face value sometimes and actually take a deeper look? A lot of times we'll have clients who ask a question, why is my website traffic down? But instead of just taking it at face value and saying, oh, traffic's down by 30%, looking at it, a step further. Okay, direct traffic's down 60%, but organic traffic's actually up. So someone who's a hard worker who can actually go, a little bit above and beyond what is initially posed to them. And as well, just another really good characteristic is kind of, I guess in that same vein, is data analysis, right? Are you data driven? Do you make decisions? For me, I think it's more important to make it's okay to make decisions with your gut, but it's also, is that backed up by data? Are you someone who's going to at least reference some sort of data points when making a hypothesis, as opposed to just kind of, blindly recommending something and, hoping it works out? Do you have data to support your claims? Are you able to, and if you don't have that data, are you able to get data to support your claims? So I think, especially when you're applying, for me, it's, very important for, when I'm either applying or when I'm evaluating candidates who are applying to kind of, evaluate, are you data driven? Are you using kind of data to back up the claims that you're making or the claims that you're going to be recommending? So those are some big characteristics that I look for, but there's obviously many others.
Yeah, he did a really good job of summing up the basics. The only really thing that I would add that might be unique to my point of view, because I come from a smaller agency than these gentlemen, is that I really look for people's past projects and work when I'm trying to investigate someone. So to me, resumes personally don't mean that much, but if I can hop on your GitHub, or I can see a website that you've done SEO work for, something like that, that I can investigate out in the wild, that's really, really big for me.
So I used to be at an agency. I am now actually in-house. So the top thing I look for is hustle. So when I say that, somebody who will, again, go above and beyond, not just in the office, but they have some kind of projects that they're working on outside, that they're working on, whether it's their own personal blog or, going to local events to further that education. I also look for people skills. I work at a company that's soon to be 5,000 people, so it's a bit difficult sometimes to, reach out to, somebody to get things done. So you're going to have to find ways to overcome those hurdles and, be comfortable talking to a COO, somebody who's in sales, maybe somebody who doesn't even understand what the internet is. I know that's something we have to deal with all the time. So people skills and the ability to, kind of go above and beyond.
Yeah, and I think it's also a good point. If you have personal projects that you're working on, and it can be, for me, it can be anything. It can be your own personal blog. It can be your own YouTube channel. It can be a website that you just post recipes to and you drive traffic to. I think sometimes, especially in the interview process or even the resume process, people forget to highlight that. But I think it's it always stands out when I see it. One, it shows that kind of you're a hard worker, right? You are kind of passionate about this. You've taken at least some steps more than probably the average person to, set up your own property, try to drive traffic to that property. And, if even if you just own your own personal blog, it minimum shows, you understand a little bit about technology. You know how to set up how to essentially set up a WordPress site, post content to it, probably interact and optimize your posts. We'll interview people and, they'll be kind of almost stunned when we start diving in deeper about their personal projects because they didn't think to bring them up as much because they thought, those might not be relevant. This was just a fun personal project I did, but nothing that's pertinent to the job. But to me, it shows, a little bit of, and one, initiative, and two, that, you know how to, use the web, what it takes to drive traffic to some sort of property. So if you're looking for a job and you do have personal projects of some sort, I think that's very important to highlight. Cover letter, resume, whatever. That can, in my opinion, really make you stand out.
Yeah. And one thing I think we all kind of talked about was, the resumes and sometimes having experience with, some tools and stuff like that. But, some of the tools that I know me and Chris use can be somewhat pricey. Or there are maybe tools that people can go home with and like play around with today that are maybe on the lower end on the price level, like even free that they can get experience with that you guys recommend?
That's a tough one. A lot of the reason why paid tools are paid tools is because they're thorough and they have a lot of backing behind them. So I'm trying to feel free to hop in if you got anything. I'm trying to rack my brain. Yeah, that's a good point. Screaming Frog.
Sometimes libraries might have, they paid for the subscription. So that
For a
people
given
can
service.
use
Oh, okay, I never heard of that. She mentioned it in the back of the room here. Apparently, some libraries do have subscriptions for various services, and I was unaware of that. So that's something
I'm not
to look
100%
into.
sure, but they do it for other software.
Oh, okay, so that's something to look into. But Screaming Frog, what Chris mentioned, is one of them. I'm trying to think what else is free out there.
Who it is, archive.org. They're not out.
Web page test for page speed insights.
That's a great one. Webpagetest.org, GT Metrics, testing website speed. That's a great way.
Lighthouse.
Screaming Frog covers backlinks. What else do we got?
Structured data testing tool.
Yep.
From Google. Yep, that's a good one.
Yeah, I mean, for me, in terms of free tools, one of the biggest benefits, I guess this would be a paid aspect, but I think it would give you access to a lot of free tools, would be just setting up your own website so you can use a lot of like the core technologies, right? Google Search Console, that's one I use every single day. You can get in there, you can play around with the indexation coverage report, that might be a little more advanced. You could even just knowing that if I use the URL inspection tool in Search Console, I can signal to Google to recrawl in my URL. That's, for even an entry-level job, that would be extremely important to know. So you get access to Google Search Console. It also shows you query reports, so you can actually see, here's all the queries used to access my website. So Search Console. Google Analytics is a huge one. I think it's one of the most important tools, maybe not in SEO, but just in web marketing in general for me, just because, I mean, you can just ask it anything. It's going to give you data on a lot of different things. The more data you have organizationally, the more essentially power you have to make good decisions. Knowing how to use a segment in Google Analytics, it's a really basic thing, but it's something I use every single day. Segments are what we use to troubleshoot like common client problems. So if you know how to use segments, that's huge. Like we had a client come to us and say, we got 10,000 increase in 10,000 direct sessions to our website with a 99% bounce rate. And that's a problem that a client's gonna come to us with. And then using Google Analytics, we can create a segment to say, okay, we only want to see these users. And from just filtering that traffic down, we just figured out it was essentially bot traffic. Google Analytics is a huge one, probably one of the most important free SEO tools. Screaming Frog is obviously another big one, just playing around with the free version, web page tests, page speed insights. Does Moz have free version still? I forget now. Yeah, I don't know if Moz still has free versions. If they do, check those out.
Along those lines, Uber Suggest. If you're doing keyword research and you're just getting started, that's a great free tool.
What is it?
Uber Suggest. UBER Suggest.
Google Trends too.
Google Trends is a good one.
Absolutely.
And we've talked about like analytics and keywords, but I would also recommend on a very 101 level, if you guys don't have a website, build your own website. Some websites, going to cost you money. We'll talk about hosting and stuff like that. But if you don't have actual experience of going into a website, you need to have that experience if you're going to get hired in this space. I mean, feel free to break it. I mean, I'm sure we've all been there and had experiences on a weekend trying to fix a website that we took down.
One more, I don't know if you mentioned it already, but the Yoast plugin for WordPress is pretty common. It's used by both amateurs and professionals. It's a great stepping off point as well.
Yeah, there are tons of plugins in particular, whether it's WordPress, Drupal, whatever CMS platform you're using, feel free to take a look at a few of them and get your own comfort level. There'll definitely like some on a few sites that are recommended. Yoast, W3, Fence, and so on.
And also along the same lines of the Google Search Console is also using Bing Webmaster Tools, because they will often give you a different subset of information as well.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And something also I think that can be good is if you know tools, highlight that on your resume. Like I think on mine is just a straight section that says tools. I just list off all like the important ones I think I know. I mean, when I'm scanning for resumes, like probably like most other people, you're just kind of looking for certain buzzwords, right? You're looking for, do they know how to use Screaming Frog? Do they know how to use Search Console? By just including all the tools that you know and have used before, that's going to give you a leg up on a lot of other resumes that come through. One of the things I'm evaluating when I'm looking at resumes is, do they use the same technology we do? If I, go ask them to, find what's the most common query used to access the site in the past 3 months, that should be relatively straightforward. Or if, maybe even a little bit more advanced would be, find a page that's getting a lot of impressions, but has a really low click-through rate, and let's figure out why. And just, knowing that they know how to use Search Console would be extremely helpful in that event. So just listing the actual tools you use either in a cover letter or resume could be really good as well.
Yeah, and stuff like Google Analytics, there is the Google Analytics certification. If you guys aren't familiar with that, you can simply, it used to be Conversion University. I don't know what the name of it is anymore. You can go online, take a few free videos and get certified with that. You can also get certified in Google AdWords if you want to get in the PPC route. There's definitely going to be things once you're in the field that you're going to forget, but at least having that certifications and having a little bit of experience going into it will help you out.
Along those same lines, one thing I want to bring up is these gentlemen are looking at it from an agency aspect. I myself is more of a freelancer in between an agency, and one thing I do want to bring up is when I was getting started, I didn't have any of the Google certifications or any certification in general. It did not really come up, to be perfectly honest, at all when I was meeting with clients at any point in time. They never once asked, are you Google certified for anything? So as a freelancer, it's a little bit different. However, as my company has grown and we're slowly transitioning from just a freelancing team to a larger agency, these things, we're proactively going out and getting them because we know larger companies are going to want them. So it's a catch-22. If you're looking to get into an agency, it's something great to have beforehand. But if you're just trying to get your feet wet in this industry as a freelancer, it's not 100% required, in my personal opinion.
Yeah, definitely, and I agree with that as well. I would, if someone came in, an interviewee came in and knew how to use the tool, but said they weren't certified or something like that, as long as they knew how to use the tool, I would say, that's fine. You clearly know how to use it. If you can, pull the basic reports and stuff like that, I think that would be fine, and you wouldn't 100% need the certification. It can make you stand out, but yeah, I agree. I don't think it's 100% make or break in terms of the interview process or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I think the certifications are a lot of selling tools when it comes to the bigger agencies. I think we'll all agree on that. So saying that, we talked a little bit kind of more about the tools and some things we look at, but there are tons of local organizations here on the Triangle. For people who are, like, we saw, at least 10 people in the audience, like, raise their hand that they were looking for a job. What maybe local organizations that you recommend that they join or take a look at to meet people looking for a job?
That's a good question. I would say, obviously the Raleigh SEO meetup, the beer and SEO meetup is another good one, another good meetup.
Is that a free beer, by the way?
It is free beer. It is free beer and SEO meetup, I believe. All on Patrick's tab. But that's a good one. The Triangle Marketing Club's good. And I would say when you're at those meetups, if you're interested, I would just ask around and say, who are the reputable agencies in the area? Who are the, if I want to get a job in SEO, where should I look in-house? Who's hiring? Just maybe try to ask around, especially people who are more organizers and stuff like that. Just maybe ask around in terms of which agencies people are kind of recommending. I think that would be a really good way to kind of get your, the list that you're applying to like pretty narrow pretty quickly. So that's kind of what I would recommend, is just kind of like feeling out, kind of asking others in the area, like kind of who they would recommend applying to, and kind of seeing what people say.
Yeah, he pretty much nailed all the big ones that I was about to suggest. My only thing to add would be to just basically use Meetup as a tool. Just hop on meetup.com, type in SEO, and maybe a specific niche like PPC or something like that, and it'll pull up a huge list of things to attend.
Yeah, guys, don't be afraid to go to a meetup. You're here tonight. There are a ton of local meetups here on the Triangle. TMC, Triangle Marketing Club, and this one, as well as the beer and SEO, probably the bigger ones. Don't hold me to this. I know, Triangle AMA used to have a job sig, actually. You can go to, I think it's amatriangle.com. I do not know if that's free, however.
May I speak to that for a moment?
Yeah, go ahead.
So if you're willing to spend $40 and you want to meet people from corporations, once a month on Thursday at the Briar Creek Country Club, AMA Triangle meets. You pay $40, you get a pretty good lunch, you hear a spectacular speaker, usually not from this area, and you meet 200 to 300 corporate marketing managers. They've all got jobs open. They're not meeting you because they're not coming out in the evening. You want to meet them, you got to go to where they are. And you're looking for jobs that are high paying, that are good jobs, that's where you go. Go meet them. I went last month because I knew the speaker. I'm not looking for a job. I just went to network. I met people in 6 corporations that I was never going to meet otherwise. And I was looking for a client, and Bayer Crop Science is now a client. So I met their marketing director. He made an introduction. Voila, multi-year contract. And for the gentleman here from Go Fish Digital, I recommend it for you as well.
Yep, definitely.
$40. You can afford it.
With regards to events too, I think consistency is just really important too. Like if I go to one of the SEO meetups and I see people consistently coming and asking for jobs, that's a way that shows me once again that they're pretty serious about it, right? If you're using your own free time to come out to these events consistently, especially, like I'll be much more inclined to say, hey, I'll pass your resume along, especially if you're making an effort to meet people, and that's just me personally, but I think consistency is really big. Maybe not just going once and saying, oh, I didn't meet anyone, maybe giving it a hand, going to at least, 4 or 5 times and seeing if you do end up getting your resume out there and getting some interviews as a result.
Yeah, and also keep an eye on some of the bigger nonprofits in the area. So the food bank actually used to do a telethon that had a lot of ties to the marketing and tech community here in the Triangle. Go to them. Don't go thinking, oh, I'm going to get a job, but it's a networking opportunity. You'll find people who don't go to these events, on a monthly basis because, they want to spend their times on other pursuits. So take a look at them. The food bank's one of them, but there are tons of nonprofits here in the area. There's one on top of my head that I'm blanking on that I'm going to forget. Will probably come to me by the end. But, there are a ton of nonprofits in the local area. Take a look at them. Usually, they're looking for some kind of help, or especially if they have a big event or gala coming up, spend a few bucks and go to them. You never want to know who you're going to meet.
So one thing I'm sure everyone noticed on the SEO meetup listing was a few topics we were going to cover. One thing that I actually wanted to ask my cohorts here, because I'm sure one of them suggested it, is how you can test experimental job-seeking strategies. When looking in Raleigh for an interview, I used Facebook ads to get the interview. Who was that? That was you. I would love to hear about that.
Yeah, so when I was moving to Raleigh, I was trying to figure out how I like to do things at scale as much as possible. So it's like, how can I basically look for jobs without actually having to go on Indeed and apply to a bunch manually? So I set up my own domain. I think it was called hiremeraleigh.com or something like that. I went on Facebook, set up where you can set up your own it's not your personal profile, but almost like a business profile, but I just made it me, essentially. Then I basically just targeted ads toward people who would be SEOs in the Raleigh area. So I would target it toward people who live within 15 miles of the city radius. I targeted it toward people who liked Moz, people who like search engine land, people who like search engine watch, people who are likely to be in positions where you could hire. I think you could target by job role kind of, and then set my parameters so I was still reaching like 500 to 1,500 people or something like that. It didn't end up getting me my actual job, but I will say I did get like calls from it. I got like at least a good amount of people like going on the site, filling out the contact form, and then like I got a few job interviews from it as a result. Like I said, it wasn't the way I got my job specifically, but it was it was an alternative method to look for jobs, I think. And if you have any, if they're already, if you can be somewhere someone else isn't, I think that's also a powerful way of looking for jobs. The reason I like that one was it shows that, it inherently shows that like a little bit about marketing. You know how to create an ad, you know how to target that ad, and it's a tiny bit creative. So that's if you can find other ways like that, those can be alternative ways to look for jobs as well. Yep, go ahead.
What's your opinion? Do you recommend LinkedIn as another venue for searching or getting yourself out there? LinkedIn.
Yeah, I haven't really used LinkedIn that much in terms of job searching. I wouldn't say and that's not to say you can't have really good success with it. I just don't. Yeah, I'm probably not the right person to give like LinkedIn advice, but I bet you can, right? I bet you can. Go to my impression would be to kind of work your network, go meet people in real life, connect with them on LinkedIn, meet with them a few more times, either message them on LinkedIn. If you want to go the recruiting route, LinkedIn's also probably a good way to meet recruiters. But I personally just haven't had a lot of experience like job seeking using LinkedIn. But I don't know if one of you guys have had good success doing that.
I haven't found a job using LinkedIn, but I can say LinkedIn has made a lot of changes and progressions towards that way. On the back end, LinkedIn actually has a function that allows you to be seen as somebody looking for a job for recruiters. Some of you guys may have seen that. You have to go into your settings and play around with it. But it gives you the options. I think there are 3 options. No, I'm not looking for a job. Yes, I'm like in the kind of like middle position of I'm considering, and then yes, I'm open to new jobs. And then you can actually target what areas you want to go to. You can actually set that settings up as well to where you get like a random feed of jobs from that area. I think it's like once a week or once a month, something like that. But yeah, definitely LinkedIn is a great opportunity, and like probably that's actually a tool we didn't talk about. Like LinkedIn definitely is probably the best platform out there, and like really go into your profile and customize it. There are so many lazy people who just go to LinkedIn and don't do anything with it. You can customize your title, add pictures, add media. We've talked about certifications. Add everything you can for LinkedIn. And think of LinkedIn, I think it was Chris mentioned platforms earlier on. Like LinkedIn is a platform on its own. Like consider that as a website. How can you best optimize that? Think about the keywords you want to be found for. If you want to be found for, SEO strategist, put SEO strategist in there. I know tons of people who have like customized their LinkedIn profiles to the best of their ability. I actually had a recruiter, interesting enough, didn't even think about this, who reached out to me today before I came here. I'm not moving to Dallas, Texas, but I did have a recruiter reach out to me about a position there, and I was like, yeah, I'll pass on this. But like recruiters do actively still use LinkedIn. So definitely take a few minutes, play around with your profile, but be sure to optimize it as best. We've talked about Uber Suggestor, find out what keywords people are looking for, make sure they're in your profile. Make sure you add content from media to video or pictures to it, whatever else you can add to it these days.
I'm gonna, I don't know who asked the question. I'm gonna say to all of you, and I work with investors, and I then work with their companies, so I deal with this daily. If you don't have a LinkedIn profile, the likelihood of you getting hired by a corporation, not a startup, is 0. Literally 0. I don't care if you have GitHub. I don't care what else you've got. Make sure your LinkedIn profile is up to date, correct. If there is a wrong year on your education, get it off. Someone's going to check. But the realistic part is 70%, and I'm not, I don't work for them, whatever it be. 70% of all corporations, the first thing they do when they see the name on the top of the resume, they go to your LinkedIn profile. is on their LinkedIn profile. They can click on the companies you've worked for. They can see all that versus on a resume that might be PDF. They can't do that. I'll also say that if you go to the Work tab where you can search for jobs, somewhere between 80 and 90% of all jobs that are listed on any other platform appear on LinkedIn as well as sponsored jobs. It is a very good place, especially if you have some experience, to be using to going looking for a job. I'm in shock that you don't know that. Absolute shock, because I know a lot of people in your company, and I have a newsflash for you. They've all got really good LinkedIn profiles, which means that, you know, they might be out looking. But the realistic part is, if I'm hiring, I build teams for projects, and if I need someone who has, you know, a background in psychology, which I was dealing with this morning, that also knows VR, that also understands social media, guess where the first place I'm going is? I typed those 3 keywords in. I had 11 names who live in Raleigh in an hour. Now, I'm not the one to call them. I'll tell the client, here's 11 names. And yes, you can identify if you're looking for a job or not. So of those 11, 3 are looking. I think they hired someone around 5:30. Taken care of. Have a good LinkedIn profile, period. Especially if you have more than a year experience.
I'll second his motion in the fact that I've been at Cisco for 21 years. I haven't interviewed for 21 years because I interviewed the first day at Cisco, and every job I've got since then has been because of my reputation. And you don't usually have to interview at that point. They just say, come, we'll give you money. But I still get, probably from my LinkedIn profile, which everybody who's, I've got tons of recommendations from people I've worked with over the years. I've got, it basically is my resume. And I average probably no less than 10 recruiters trying to get me to come work for them a day. I get 10 emails basically a day saying, come work for us. Now, my first question is to them, and they hate this question right off the bat, is my first response will be if it's something that looks interesting, it's not always open, you never know what's coming up. If I see something that's interesting, my first response will be, what is the pay scale? Because I'm not going to waste my time and their time if it's, 20 grand and I need 200 grand, so I'm not going to do that, but I get like 10 or 20 a day. Now, a few weeks ago, another manager at Cisco asked me to come take a job that he had an internal rec for at Cisco. And I said, yeah, I like that job, I'll come over. And the process was, and I had never had to do this before, I had to go to HR for the first time in 21 years. And I went into HR and I said, well, let me send you my resume. They go, no, we don't want your resume. We don't take resumes anymore at all, period. We only take LinkedIn profiles. And actually in the Cisco web interface, they have an API that connects into LinkedIn. So when you go to their web page to put in your resume, there's not a button to upload a resume anymore. There's a button to link to your LinkedIn profile. So they don't even accept resumes at Cisco anymore at all, period. So they only take LinkedIn.
Well, I just helped somebody go from one job to another job, and believe me, her resume got read. She didn't go to HR. Maybe it's different if you go to HR, but
if you go to the web page, the only thing they ask for is your LinkedIn profile.
I'm just saying she went from like a lead to a much higher position, so it's not always the case.
Yeah, if you're doing it through managers in the back end, maybe.
Yeah.
Because most of my jobs have been like that, where I don't even have to prepare a resume. You just have done work for them. But it's through managers. It's different.
There's also a lot of free and low-cost LinkedIn resources. It's really worth it to, at least I think the low-cost one is definitely worth it, because she sits there side by side with you, and she helps you create it and put all the latest things that you're supposed to in. But I want to talk about how you can use LinkedIn to be the driver and not wait for people to contact you because your profile is so good. You have a company you want to work for, go look on LinkedIn. See if you're connected to anybody who works there. Read their profile. If you're not, you're probably connected to somebody who is connected who works there. So read both of their profiles and then ask for conversations. Don't apply for a job. Ask for a conversation.
Yeah, I think we can have a whole hour-long discussion on LinkedIn alone, because that's such an important tool in today's world. Like a few of you guys have already mentioned, if you don't have a LinkedIn profile, create it. you know, and if you don't know the basics of LinkedIn, like create a profile and just go to somebody else's. There was a gentleman here on the Triangle named Neil Isaacs. I recommend everybody take a look at Neil's profile. Neil's like one of the like superstars in the networking community. Take a look at him and take a look at what he's done with his LinkedIn. He's always active, always posting, has a profile filled out to the most optimized he can have it.
What was his last name?
Neil Isaacs.
I second that. I know Neil.
Neil's a great people. I'm actually having lunch with him tomorrow, I believe.
How do you spell his last name?
Isaacs, I think. Oh gosh,
I like
me
the
too. That ISSACS.
I think they're.
One S.
It's one S.
One S, two A's.
Isaac's son?
VR business.
Yeah. But just kind of going back to since somebody actually brought up LinkedIn, and like kind of connecting with people and having that forced interaction. I'm curious, what's everybody's favorite interview question that they ask?
That's a good question. I guess I really like this question. And I don't. I guess this was more. I guess very specific to this one person. But I guess it probably could be generalized in some form. But like, how do you reapproach a problem once you have to take a look at it again in some sort of form? Because at least in the agency side, that's constantly the problem that you're running into is re-looking at a website and then refiguring out ways to optimize it. Once you've done all of the easy, obvious stuff, you've improved the navigation, you've fixed all the internal 300 redirects, you've keyword optimized all your pages, whatever. Once you're looking at a client, who's been with you 2 or 3 years, how do you re-look at that website? How do you find new ways to fix it? We asked that for a girl who actually recently came in, and she was interviewing for the second time, and we kind of asked her that question, basically like, how did you look at this project differently than you did before? So what I'd like to do is almost reimagine that question kind of moving forward, but when you ask, it's kind of the first ones that come to mind, because I'm really, when we evaluate people, I'm really interested, not even to their answers to specific questions a lot of times, but more on the actual thought processes, like, how did you get to that answer? Like, what was your thought process there? Sometimes, like, obviously it's better if it's right, but when people are interviewing, I'm not going to hold you to, like, these 5 things were right and these 3 were wrong. It's more generally, like, what was the general thought process? Like, was the idea in the right place? You kind of at least understand, maybe you did recommend conflicting tags, but did you at least kind of, like, understand why they can, like what they did? So a lot of times it's for me like kind of more thinking about the thought processes than a specific like question. But I did really like the one question about kind of like when you come back to a problem, how do you approach it? I think that's pretty valuable, at least to agency side, when you're constantly. You have 10 different sites to look at. When you have like 10 different sites to look at and you have to like constantly go back to them, how do you reapproach problems that you've already looked at? I think that's like an interesting one to me.
Yeah, so if I had to pick one specific question, it'd probably be the one that's the most open-ended and allow me to continue the conversation. It would be, what project are you most proud of and why? And for 2 reasons. A, it lets me know the person's worked on something before, which is really important to me personally, because I can actually show and see something tangible they've done. But also, as a secondary point, it allows them to kind of be put at ease, because a lot of folks are nervous in interviews, and I just want to provide an avenue for them to kind of freely express themselves. So that I really like that question open-ended in terms of, what project are you most proud of and why are you proud of it? Because that allows us to then snowball into a lot of different topics.
So mine is something similar, very open-ended. What is your favorite website and why is it successful? That tells me or shows me a website that people like, and then also tells them, to think critically, like, why is it successful? Why do I keep coming back to it? That.
Has anybody suggested a porn site as their favorite?
No, they haven't. The last time I actually asked this, somebody said Reddit, and he said Reddit because I keep going back to it. So I was like, okay, I can see that. It's valid. So it shows that when he came on board, which we did hire that gentleman, we need to think of ways to keep people on our website. How are we going to do that? We're not going to have an up and down voting system, I can tell you that. But we're going to have quality content that, keeps people coming back. So, in saying that, it is getting about 7:15 now. I have one question I'm curious, maybe for both of you guys to answer, and I guess I'll leave that up to the last question. What can somebody do who's looking for a job? What can they do tomorrow to help better their job search?
My answer is going to be a little controversial, and I'm actually curious to hear your guys. There's a lot of controversy when getting started, like, is it appropriate to do free work or not? So on that tangent, the first thing I would do is go to a Chamber of Commerce event, a BNI event, any sort of large networking event, and find someone who is trying to get their business off the ground and basically do free work for them. That's what I did in the beginning, and I had the rule of fives. So I did 5 projects free of charge, which, in my opinion, was a good enough portfolio resume to get started. Then I did 5 projects at a very, very low cost. At that point, I had a 10, portfolio resume, for lack of a better term. At that point, I was very comfortable charging full price. So I just took the slow and steady approach. I went to networking events. I found a few people to do free work for. I used that free work to get some low-cost work in terms of freelance, and that further parlayed into full-price work later on.
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, do tomorrow. So, for me, it would probably be your lowest input, highest output item. So what could you put the least amount of effort into, but get the most in return? This is going to sound so simple, but I would say, go and take an honest look at your resume. Almost think of it as you're optimizing an individual page. My ideal optimized page is every little line on that page does something, every heading does something, everything about that page adds value to it. The same way with a resume. Take a look and is every little line in your resume adding value or using data where you can, instead of saying I did competitive analysis, maybe it's I did competitive analysis that led to an implementation that resulted in 20% year-over-year traffic or something like that. Or I did an analysis of a navigation that led to 20% increase in year-over-year organic traffic. Really taking a look at, piece by piece of your resume and making sure it's every little thing is doing something. And then maybe applying that same logic to your LinkedIn profile if you're optimizing that as well. Making sure that every single line is adding value, every single line is telling a different story, whether it's demonstrating a certain skill, whether it's showing that you're a hard worker, whether it's showing that you don't recommend something once and you come back to it multiple times. Every single line is kind of highlighting a different aspect of your skill. That might be 2 to 3 hours worth of your time, but if that increase in quality of your LinkedIn or your resume, it could really increase the amount of returns you get in terms of people actually reaching back out to you. It's probably better than applying to 100 more jobs with a weaker resume as opposed to really taking time on your resume and then applying to more high quality jobs.
I'm a huge fan of actually doing something for free, by the way. So I was trying to think of the name earlier. Activate Good is a nonprofit, basically web job listing for nonprofits. So that's an opportunity as well. Take a look at what they're looking for. Spend a few times outside. Get some skills that you didn't have, whether it's building a website, using social media, skills like that you can actually, then put on that resume. But as well as I would take a look at your network. Hopefully we all have LinkedIn profiles here. Take a look at who actually is in the digital space, whether it's marketing, whether it's, SEO, whether it's PPC, and go grab lunch with them. This industry, especially here in the Triangle, I tell everybody there's always 1 degree of separation with all of us. Somebody knows somebody, and we're all completely transparent about the job industry, the job market. Just because, let's say, Patrick leaves IBM tomorrow doesn't mean that might not be a good position for you. So keep that in mind. So go on your LinkedIn and take a look at who's in your industry. As Patrick shakes his head back there, take a look at who's in your network and go grab coffee with them, grab lunch with them. Think about this on a people level. this is a sales kind of networking thing, and you may have to break out of your shell to do that, but take advantage of that. Patrick, anything else?
Yeah, you mentioned certifications a couple of times, but the ones you mentioned are for pay for analytics. Are there no good search certifications you would recommend?
Not that I'm.
Market right there.
Because SEOs can't agree on anything. There's none
Yeah.
that can be respected.
Google Analytics and AdWords are probably the ones I put the most credence in. Other than that, there are other certifications, right? There's probably not specific SEO, but there are HubSpot certifications. Hootsuite offers one, I think. I'm sure there's other tool providers that offer certifications that probably help you advocate for their tool a little bit more as well. I think some of those providers offer certifications, but I think the big ones for me will be AdWords and Analytics.
One thing, I guess while on topic, I can mention, because I was recently doing some of my Google recertifications, and the mobile website speed test, the mobile certification test is helpful because it's not just about websites and web design, but it has a lot of things about page speed, DOMs, DNS, stuff that you need to know to be, pretty good at SEO as well.
You can also become a Google local guide, and you can become a high-level one, and then you can show people how you've driven X amount of views, because Google will show you that you've got 300,000 views on 80 pictures or something.
That's a really good point.
Yeah, you can definitely become an evangelist and stuff like that. There is
And anyone can see that data, and it's like, I want 300,000 views to my business.
and one thing as well, like since we mentioned like mobile speed and stuff like that, one thing that's been hot over the last year, and so why I always tell people to get a website or do something for free, is having technical skills will help you so much. Like, yes, you can be a copywriter or content specialist, but at some point you're going to have to go in that website, and even just simply uploading copy, there's more to it than just uploading copy on a web page. You have to even know the 101 basics, like what is a title tag and stuff like that. So like, get some hands-on experience. And what is it? Surprised we didn't mention it. Go to Moz.com, MOZ.com. Moz has an SEO resources. I forget the actual name of it. You might know it, Patrick. What is their blog? Yeah, their guide to SEO. Read it. It's super long. It was updated actually within the last 2 months, maybe. So take a look at that. It's super long, but that's the #1 spot I go to for everybody, just 101 level getting into that field.
But yeah, also to back up Cole's point about just being just generally more technical. This was a real life situation that happened in an interview. We had an interviewee who was trying to log into one of his Google accounts to show us something. We typically have our interviewees prepare a specific project. So I believe he was logging in to show us that. And when during the process of him logging in, we noticed that he had two-factor authentication enabled. And that was actually, one of the partners actually took that as a big plus because, that showed kind of almost a deeper understanding of how technology worked, that, he, took an extra precaution to actually keep his account from getting hacked, right? So even just, showing that you have a general understanding of technology, basically in any way you can, that can generally really help your chances in terms of, whether it's the resume or interview process. If we think you have, a passion for technology, that typically, goes a long way.
How much more time we got, Patrick?
What?
How much more time do we got?
We kick you out at 8.
One thing I can add actually as well, and it's probably not something like we commonly think of, but any kind of Excel skills would be great as well. Especially if you're working on like bigger clients eventually, like you're going to be going through so much data and you're going to want to do a data dump into Excel. Know a little bit more than just the basics. Be able to create some pivot tables or maybe do some like, custom like stuff in it. That's some great skills to have. And you can actually, I think, just take some classes on like lynda.com. There is this thing called Google that we can all use. Go to Google and find the free basics of, Microsoft Excel, and take a look at that.
I 100% agree. It's not SEO necessarily, but if you go to Google and you become an expert with the sheets and the documents and all the ways you can pull data into it, that's a whole career in itself. I struggle with that stuff. I just use it for what I do, but there's some people who are magicians at it, and they can really help people. And that's free if you've got time.
Yeah, I also recommend Google Data Studio for visualizing your data. So I have to report into the C-suite, and they're like, I don't want to look at 500 lines of Excel spreadsheets. Make it pretty for me. And it also allows you to blend your data. So like I'll blend in my Google Analytics with, my Google Search Console, and make it beautiful for them.
Great one.
That's a good one, yeah.
What was that one?
It's Google Data Studio. It's in beta, so like sometimes it breaks on me, but I just pray it works when I show them.
It's like a Google product, though. It's going to be in beta for like a year or two. So, but yeah, it's definitely something I recommend everybody, especially if you're not using like a enterprise level data reporting, custom dashboard. Use Google Data Studio. I've actually done it for a freelance client outside of my office. So.
Yeah, and I think that's just another, to your point, that's even just another great skill to have in general, is just being able to, show data in some sort of presentable way is often very powerful, and it's a powerful way, it's good for us to see when in a potential candidate, and yeah, if you can kind of show that you can visualize data and essentially demonstrate a certain point through a data visualization, that's a big part of our job, is essentially communicating a more abstract concept and making it into a data visualization that a client will buy into. So yeah, that's a great point with Google Data Studio.
I guess along those lines, since we're talking about skill sets and tools, kind of along with what you said earlier, how do I phrase this?
You're fine. But no, skills, something we never mentioned is like having HTML, CSS skills. Like, you don't have to be a developer at the end of the day, but have a little bit of skills to be able to go into a website. Something you probably hear all the time in this space, or at least we do, is stuff like markup language, schema. You have to actually go into a website to implement a lot of this stuff. So, you need to be able to go into even a CMS WordPress website, go into the back end and be comfortable actually looking at that code and understanding what it does. Whether you're a freelancer, whether you're working at an enterprise level client, at some point you're going to be asked a question like, hey, can you just add this to the sidebar? And like, being able to be comfortable doing that means so much.
Thank you for that, because that jogged my memory. Yeah, I was basically going to move into, not all of us have to be coders to be SEOs, so if you don't know HTML and CSS right off the bat, that's okay. You can learn it at some points. You might not have to, but like he recommends, it's a great tool to have. Along those same lines, something that specifically applies, in my opinion, to SEO analyzation is Python. Python is a great language that just handles data very well. So if you're feeling adventurous and you do want to learn some coding, I would recommend Python.
And again, there are free classes actually here in the Triangle. Go to Meetup. I think they stopped offering classes. They may still be around. Don't hold me to that. But there was like a Girls Develop It up in Durham. They offer training classes in a variety of different languages that you want to have. So, anything else, Patrick, that you can think of?
Just round of applause for our speakers.
Any other questions, guys? Like, for those in the room looking for a job, like, what questions do you have, or like, what issues do you guys actually face when it comes to looking for a job?
That we did not specifically cover. Is there anything we can answer specifically for y'all?
I wanted to ask you more about what that you mentioned about sort of building your own internship. You must have already had some skills when you agreed to do that rule of fives.
Yes. So backing up, I guess, I've been personally programming since I was 10, and that's why I chose to go down that route. Is I had programming skills. I didn't have SEO, marketing, or any of those other skills, and I used what I had and parlayed it into things I did not have.
So for the people who don't have those skills but want to get them, are there, because there is a whole issue of working for free, are there organizations where you might get a job doing, you know, I mean, just, I'm not saying people in here would have to stoop that low, but answering phones in order to get trained on, and it would have to probably be a bigger company, on the different tools that you're saying are needed, and then this person could be developed. Have you ever heard anything like that?
If I'm understanding you correctly, I don't believe so. Have you?
No, but I would say that instead of doing a job, like volunteer at a nonprofit. Oftentimes a nonprofit won't give you a lot of work, but like, you know, especially if it's like, you know, something like the Raleigh SEO organization here in the Triangle, they're out of the blue, like ask you like, hey, can you add this to the website or something like that? And that'll actually give you more of some like hard skills, you know, whether it's like adding like, you know, something on like a CMS website or actually going into the code. There was an organization no longer here in the Triangle, sadly, called TEMA, the Triangle Interactive Marketing Association, and they asked me to do a lot of things that were above and beyond my responsibilities, but I got a lot of skills doing it. As a nonprofit, you know, they were like, hey, you know, we don't need this done right away, but can you, like, you know, we're having an event, can you add it this week? So, like, you know, find local organizations that you can volunteer and spend some time with is what I would say to that.
Me? Okay. Two thoughts came to my mind, maybe relevant, I'm not sure. One is I learned about, there's a website called Fiverr.com where it's an inexpensive way for people looking for people trying to get experience. Like, I'm familiar with the writing aspect, like a lot of people that will write books for people. Is there an SEO slice of that where people could register to get their experience? Where that's what first comment. Second comment is ZipRecruiter.com is also not a bad place to get yourself registered. It narrows things down a lot more than things like Monster or the other larger networks. So, are you familiar with anything sites like Fiverr or?
The most I can say from my personal experience on Fiverr is, well, first of all, I'm not going to recommend it as a way for you to get SEO experience because it's bottom dollar and you're going to be dealing with people who are not willing to recognize your even upcoming skill sets. I personally have not found any success on either side of the coin on Fiverr, being both trying to use it as a tool, like you said, to find work, or using it to find people to work for me. I have not had any personally great success, so I can't comment on that.
Yeah, same.
I haven't had a lot of experience using it, but I believe, I don't know if you guys have Upwork. I think Upwork is another freelance website that you might want to just take a stop at before Fiverr. That could provide the opportunities that you want. Like I said, I won't personally attest to it because I haven't used it that much. I think I've hired a freelancer off of Upwork, and I had a pretty good experience. But other than that, I just know that's kind of maybe something that's a step above Fiverr.
Well, I just want to say over the last year, talking to my friends and associates, and it doesn't matter whether they're late 20s or late 50s, and if you want a job in a larger corporation, LinkedIn is where you're going to get it. And having been a researcher, I don't want to spend too much time researching through too many different avenues. I like to always find the best research tool for one specific area, and then I would concentrate on it. So again, if you're looking at startups, I know it's a different situation. But if you want to work for SAS or Fidelity, you know, or MetLife, LinkedIn is where you're going to accumulate the connections.
I would very much agree with that. I like to stay in the realm of freelance and like kind of building my small agency. Just like this gentleman over here, I get tons of recruiting stuff on a daily basis because my LinkedIn profile's up there. So I can attest to the fact that people are definitely looking at LinkedIn.
I would also just generally say know the industry you want to target. You know, some people in this room want to maybe stay at a small company or, you know, stay at a small business or even just be a freelancer. If that's the case, yeah, maybe create a profile, but like, you know, definitely don't spend, you know, your time on LinkedIn. You know, go spend your time on, you know, those efforts of going to stuff like the chambers, the BBB events, those small level events that you want to go to. Definitely enterprise level and bigger corporation, you know, definitely have a LinkedIn profile, and I would even stay active, engage with other people on it. So my day job, I do digital strategy for the 5th biggest trash company in the world. Our home office is on LinkedIn. Yeah, it makes sense. But everybody at the local branches, I cannot imagine a trash truck driver looking for a job on LinkedIn. So think about, like, you know, the kind of industry you want to work in and figure out where that industry's at. Whether it's on LinkedIn, whether it's, you know, going to a small business, whether it's on Facebook, for crying out loud. Facebook now allows you to post jobs as well. So find the platform that's right for the industry you're targeting.
I happen to know of a really good job seeker event. It's every Friday morning. Let's go to networkingwithnate.com. It's got the address and all the information.
As well as Linda's also a resume writer, by the way, guys, in the back. So if you do not feel, I guess, adequate with your resume, maybe you should speak with her before you leave today.
And come to the networking event and come sign up for my breakout session. But there are other good breakout sessions too.
Is that through Eventbrite or through Meetup?
Is that through Eventbrite or Meetup, Linda?
I don't think it's on either. It's just www.networkingwithnate.com.
About 5